Today we're going to put a CA finish on this handle, but then I decided not to. Stick around and find out why. I'm sanding on this finish. I'm on 2500 grit, getting ready to buff it over on our buffing station called Warren. The buffing station is called Warren. Take it over to the Warren so we can buff it. Warren Buffett. Walk over and say, hey Warren, buff it. Our truck's name is Norris on the mill. I got some trouble spots in here I'm going to have to work on. I'm certain of it, per normal. It never comes out perfect the first time. You got to work it till you get it. Partial takedown means that I can finish the blade and I can finish the handle. Just glue them together right at the end, epoxy them together, and they're finished. Finished product, glue together, gently clean up the residue of the epoxy. That means I won't be scuffing on the blade when I'm doing my handle. I won't be touching that blade at all. It's done, and the handle will be done separately. So one won't, sometimes when you're finishing your handle, you scuff into the blade, and I have a little bit of a challenge staying off the blade after it's finished. And we want the finish on that blade just nearly perfect. So when we get it there, we want to leave it alone. You don't want to touch it or have to redo it. But you have to, usually on a knife, you have to finish the blade first, etch it, and coffee darken it, and do all your buffing. Then put the handle on and finish your handle. That leaves a lot of opportunities to get into the knife and have to scuff up that nice finish. So we're doing this to keep from having to touch up so much on the blade, because we get that blade just right where we want it and we don't want to touch it anymore. I think there's an opportunity later on, if we get a particular style of knife, that I could probably do it like we have in the past. But I think I like this technique really nice. It leaves a really good product at the end, a very nice finished product. So I may not change the way I do this. I may stick with this for quite a while. This adds a little bit of time when you're making the knife. Just a couple little extra steps. I had to pin these three pieces together, 2 stainless steel pins. It's a little bit extra work. I think it's going to be worth it. At least an hour, a couple hours. That's if you don't touch the blade. If you end up getting into the blade, you could have half a day pretty quick, fussing around trying to get that blade re-darkened, getting everything perfect back on it again. Take this handle over and buff it. I'll have to fit this handle up against the ricasso again. I had it surgically fit. I've got a lot of CA on it, so I've got to sand that down and refit it back over the ricasso. We'll have to etch the blade and coffee darken it. Then we will epoxy it together, and then it'll go to the sharpening stones. Then we'll box it up and send it to our client. My favorite part.
Minutes later.
We got it buffed up, and the finish, it had a lot of icky stuff in the finish, and it didn't come out the way we wanted at all. So we're going to redo it until we get it right. Had air bubbles in it. It's hard to tell, little white dots in it, all over, speckled all over. Don't know why, still trying to figure it out. Taking all the finish off, re-sand it, go again. Got to refit the handle to the blade. I over-sanded the end of the handle, and I get to refit it to the ricasso. It's a little frustrating. I overheated my micarta and put white spots in it. Didn't know what the white lines were from. It was from overheat. I don't know what the speckles are from.
Got the stuff too hot, and possibly you put too thick of layers on the thing.
Gotta pet it. Make sure it's happy and comfortable and warm, cozy. Free of dust. The dust is free out here in the shop. We don't charge any extra for it. We're getting ready to put a CA finish on this handle. We have had some challenges doing this. Look at that static electricity. I just got loaded up with dust in the back of that. I need a magnifier. This is Dad showing you how it's done. After my son showed me how to do it. Got the G10 a little too warm. It made white spots, white streaks in it, in the G10, so we don't want to do that anymore. You got to really be gentle with it and not heat it up. Okay, so we sprayed it with the Instaset. Now we're using a CA glue. We don't want to get it too heavy. Only want to do just enough that spreads around, and when it starts getting too sticky gooey, you gotta get off of it. We're using the Instaset first and letting it dry a little bit, letting it flash off. And I'm using a thick CA instead of the thin. It needs to go on smooth. It needs to be shiny the whole time you're working it. If it starts getting ripply, you need to stop. I'm gonna dry my finger a little bit so I'll get this stuff all over. I'll take the paper towel residue off here in a minute before I start using it again. We're gonna let this flash off a little bit, which it's doing right now. Then we're gonna hit it with some Instaset and put about 6 coats on. We did put on one knife about 16 coats of thin. I think we're gonna be able to do 6 coats of this thick for about the same result. If you spray the Instaset on it right away, when it's a little early and fresh, it gets ripply, gets real textury, and that is not the direction we want to go.
We are not killing aliens. We don't need Ripley. Get it? Does anybody, please, somebody got that right? Name that movie below if you got it. You should get it. Everybody should get it except for my brother Josh.
Look at this, Kyle. Too wet? Too thick? I need to sand it back off and start over? It was just too wet, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was probably too thick of a layer.
Alright.
I think so, because when I did that red one, I did multiple coats that looked like that every time, and it came out horrible.
I think I put it on too thick.
I would take the small amount of time now to get rid of it, and then I would, if it ends up being bad and bury it in there later. Also, I don't know how much of that thick super glue you can have left there. I'm gonna need some of that for this wire handle. Putting the wire in.
So I should sand that off. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I wouldn't risk it. It might be okay, but I wouldn't risk it because there'll be a whole lot more later or a little bit down.
Well, I just put more super glue on. Well, we're gonna sand it off and start over. Non-revenue time. Trying to make payroll, buy more equipment, need more consumables. Besides that, it's a big deal. I don't mind making mistakes. Just don't like it when it costs so much to do it.
The next day.
Where do I start? I love the product. I love the way the design, everything about it, the way it worked. However, when we did a CA on it, I personally, me working on this with CA finish, had challenges one after another. And one of them was I dropped this twice when it was almost finished. And when I dropped it, it chipped off on the corner. I didn't mind the chip, but I didn't like the way it looked. It looked kind of cheap, like a cheap finish. I don't know, I'm just saying I may get it dialed in later, but it stuck okay, but I think it can stick better. So I did that. Actually, I sanded this 3 times because I got white speckles in it when I was using the accelerator. I didn't have my mojo, my system, my timing down. I kept crying like a little baby and asking Kyle for help. He got me dialed in on it, and it was timing. It was a timing thing. I finally got it smooth and creamy, no air pockets in it, no air bubbles, and I was using the accelerator, but I had problems with it chipping when I dropped it twice during the manufacturing process. So I took it all the way off, took it back down for the 4th time, sanded it all the way back down gently. My handle was large enough to do that, and I just barely dusted into the handle, got it finished up again this last time. It's micarta, a V10 micarta, and we got a V10, or excuse me, a micarta black out here with a, what is it, German silver. So it's silver, yeah, silver spacer here. So it's all the way down, bare bone, naked, buffed and polished. 2500 grit sanded, and then we buffed it with red rouge and gently. I kept the heat off of it, and buffed it and it got really crisp square lines on it. Got a nice contour across the backside. It's kind of fun. I haven't done that much. It's not that fancy, but it's just fun to do. And it's really creamy. It's got a little weight to it, and it feels rich, and it's got a good deep dark rich look to it. I'm etching the blade right now in ferric chloride, and I've done my fit and finish on it. Now I'm etching the blade, and then we're going to coffee darken it and assemble. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more great content like this, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.